Alex Answer here. It is November 13th in the year 2017. In this video, I'm going to talk about a number of things regarding off-the-grid living. I do about a monthly video on this topic. It's not the only thing that I cover on this channel, but it is something that I sought out for myself when I came to realize that I'm very different than a lot of people in today's day and age. And as a public figure, as a YouTuber, right, that speaks about controversial topics, who's not a Democrat, who's not a Republican, who doesn't associate with some of the race identity politics or racism of our culture, there's a lot of different reasons why I've chosen to step back from mass consciousness and live off the grid. So I'm going to be talking about that because I'm going to be bringing up a few questions that perhaps you might be asking yourself as well, or asking others if you're interested in off-grid living, and perhaps think tanking whether it's right for you. So what is off-grid living ideal for? I've taken a few notes, and I'm also going to be doing some writing for my supporters and subscribers over at outsidethebox.vhx.tv. For those of you that do believe that this content is worth supporting, I'm going to go deeper down the rabbit hole into some of these topics, especially off-grid tribalism and how that is a threat to off-grid communities when they don't even know who their closest friends could be if there's a crisis. So let's talk about what is off-grid living ideal for. There are certain health conditions that I do believe that some people have as a result of living in these unnatural environments and being surrounded by unnatural electromagnetic pollution, okay? There's also certain psychological issues and states that come about when a human being is basically living in a hive of humans. And this is arguably against our nature, to be living in these high-tech cities. And ultimately, that's what's really making people sick. It's not different racial backgrounds living together. It's the cities, it's the cell phone towers. And we're also going to get into how social media mind control and a lot of this distortion on the internet has effed up a lot of people's minds that happen to be living in the cities. So, you've heard the expression, more money, more problems, more people, more problems, is how I tend to look at it. Some of the drawbacks, obviously, with off-grid living is that you could be isolated for a long period in time if you're someone that isolates, someone like myself, or if you're so different than everybody else, and there's a lot of different reasons how someone could be different, that you're exiled, so to speak. But in the end, that drawback can be overcome. One of the things that I've learned only recently, it's better to have a few really good friends that basically you would fight an enemy for. That you would literally like put yourself on the firing line for your brother, for your sister, or for your friend's wife or girlfriend, that type of thing. Those are real friends. People that right, will come to your aid, or people that won't leave you in a shed all winter long without even, like a run to town for supplies. So right now is a good time, for example, and I'm going through this, living off the grid, you get an idea who your real friends are going to be when the you-know-what hits the fan. Some people don't believe that the you-know-what is going to hit the fan, so they haven't changed their tribalist ways. So it's important for those of us that moved off grid to get prepared for what's to come, to realize those people that are going to be our friends and those people that are just out for themselves. So, there may be some pain that goes along with living by yourself, but in the end, you may acquire friends that you may have for a lifetime. The new mantra that I have is one good quality friend per year. That's looking what I basically have no local friends except for one. And she came into my life about 2 months ago or a month ago. And when she came into my life and provided some rides, and she's just a friend, a mother of 7. But I have never felt trust from another local like her, like this Native American woman. I've never seen any men come to my aid or offer to help me with basic things in this area, to where I'm an outsider. In this day and age where people are freaked out about outsiders and people moving in migration patterns and race identity politics, it's a scary time for America. So these are things that I've learned. These are things that I am writing about. Will I ever live in a city again? I think I would like to. I think that I'm selling myself short by living off-grid full-time. I see off-grid as something medicinal. Go off-grid, write a book, make a documentary film, have a breakthrough personally, deal with core personal issues, grow as a spirit, become empowered, and then go back out in the world and share that knowledge, and then return back up to the mountain for more contemplation when that cycle is done. For those of you that have been around for more than a few months or more than a few years, you've seen how many times this has been going on with me, that I've gone off the grid, went to Costa County for 9 months, and came out with a solar flare presentation, which wasn't really received well by the world. Very few people have even commented on the ebook, even when I sent to them for free, because it's still almost before its time. But in my own mind, I had a breakthrough. And I put together information that I believe will be appreciated by generations to come in 10 years, 20 years, when they will really start to understand the impacts of the sun on our planet, even more so than they do today. Today, I aim to make documentary films or videos that I believe will impact the world in a positive way. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is almost before its time. I would return to a city, however, because even though I've spoken ill of cities and the energies there, it's more open energetically. A person like me is more accepted in an urban environment than a rural environment. You would think that some of these rural off-grid environments are, people natural, hey, hippies, hanging out, love. Quite the opposite. The tribalism goes up the more rural you go. And the race identity politics, and in the post-2016 election, that element of things is stronger than any other time in American history. And for those that are new viewers, I am an independent. I do not choose between masters or get boxed into a corner, with a stick. Pick a master. So an independent thinker like me, right, it's natural to move off the grid. But just because you go off the grid doesn't mean those people off the grid really unplug their mind from social media or their cell phone or the matrix. Okay, so there's a big difference. This is what I wanted to get into also between going off the grid now and going off the grid, say, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, people would get to know each other, or maybe they would get to know someone like my father without passing judgment. Now, his son is living in a new America, right, where people are freaked out and looking for the next rape-ugee. So, anybody that may look a little bit out of line in that community may be confused for a rape-ugee. And see, people don't even realize how Americans themselves are facing their own refugee experience. So, again, it's a different off-grid reality now than 30 years ago, because today there are people acting like there aren't karmic consequences. Today, people are acting like some humans don't deserve basic rights. In some ways, we've fallen back compared to where we were 30 years ago or 20 years ago during the period in which my mother met my father. So it's a very different America that is fueled by disinformation on the internet that is there by design to divide us. So this is a problematic time for off-grid communities because it reflects the larger whole of what is taking place in the nation. Let me pause here for some other thoughts. Why doesn't intentional community work for a lot of people? Because there are a lot of unspiritual men and women that only want things built on their own property, whether it be 40 acres. They may want to be the king and queen of a community. And I've seen various types of this type of hierarchy that a lot of humans don't mind. A lot of humans don't mind a few humans telling them and a whole group of people what to think. In fact, a lot of humans don't even mind when there's a few humans that will actually shame publicly humans that disagree with them. I've noticed this human psychology in various circles, and it's quite disturbing. So unfortunately, there aren't a lot of quality people involved in leadership when it comes to intentional communities for right now, and this really has to do with really a reflection of where our nation's at. Use caution with people that would use your labor for their benefit. And this is an issue if you learn about woofing, right, for example, right, where you can go and basically be an indentured slave, travel anywhere in America, work in someone's garden, right, and maybe you can tent. And so right now we have a situation where there are people out there, they may not even realize that their whole agenda is to take advantage of people, but that's essentially what is taking place. So use caution if you're a new off-gridder or would-be off-gridder and you're going to go travel to visit someone. A lot of people have their things set up to benefit themselves and their significant other. and they are there waiting in the wings to take advantage of people that don't have a home, whether they see themselves as they are or not. So this is something that I've learned. There's also a lot of men that have anger issues and abuse issues, alpha male issues, and they cannot see other men as an equal. You know, and this is, again, another product of our culture and of our society. You know, the idea that one man has to be in control of the tribe. And this is something that turns on a lot of women. You know, the man that, pounds his chest and acts like he's a tough guy, and especially when he's really not, but he's just strutting around like a rooster. Just be aware that you're going to be dealing with more of that primal animalism off grid than even in the city. That means you can be dealing with bigger alcoholics and douchebags off the grid. For those of you that are familiar with deliverance, right? And that type of a thing. I live in a nice area nature-wise, but as far as community and energy, it's more on the deliverance line. And I'm hoping that, I develop, again, I set the goal of one new off-grid ally per year. So if I continue living in this region for a few years, I might have a few allies in a few years. But I'll tell you what, right now having one ally is better than having no ally. Things were so different just a few months ago. So things have really changed. So a lot of the politics that people are getting involved in is really self-sabotage. If someone has abilities and talents that can help other communities, right, but say they're a political independent, it's not wise to insult them and call them a closet liberal or Hillary supporter just because they're not a fan of the president. See, to me, the whole idea of going off grid is going off the grid. It's not going off the grid and getting on face crack, and then trolling people that you perceive to be your political enemies, or calling for people to be harmed that are escaping bombs dropping in other countries, or calling for their persecution or judgment. So right now, the disinformation on the internet is contaminating American communities. It's not just an off-grid issue, it's a rural issue. I have a friend that's been living here for 25 years. The kids in school are doing things to each other based on race or perception of race that they were not doing several years ago because of what's happening now and the mass media promoting that divide and conquer program. And Americans are still in denial, and some are becoming more tribal than ever. So again, you can take the person out of Babylon. You can't necessarily take Babylon out of the person. I would love to meet more off-gridders that when they say, screw the mainstream media, they meant it. They weren't just saying, screw the mainstream media, but I want to hump the president. No, I'm looking for people that are like outside the box of the mainstream media talking points, outside the box of what's coming out of Infowars.com, outside the box of all those things. Okay, so let's continue. Trump isn't coming to the aid of off-gridders, nor did he come to the aid of the off-gridders in Costilla County. I did. And I want people to remember that. I came to the aid of off-gridders being kicked off their land in Costilla County. Donald Trump did not. So I've done more for off-gridders in the state of Colorado than Donald Trump. So there's no reason anybody that is pro off-grid rights, right, should also be for Donald Trump, but be suspicious of myself. That is stinking thinking. And that's exactly what I've experienced in the post-2016 reality. Getting into a couple other things as well. Things smart off-gridders need to know. And we talked about the intentional community issue. And we talked about the issues with a lot of men in today's society due to the programming. And so a lot of men really need to learn how to really open up their hearts and see other men as equals and find out how can we have a common ground and go beyond racial, religious, political lines. Now, how homelessness has led to my off-grid experience, not wealth. Okay, this will take just a moment to kind of get into. So back in 2012, I found myself in Costilla County, Colorado, and I had left Dallas, Texas. And the reason I was there after doing some sincere praying to the Creator. I'm not religious, but I believe that you can believe in a God or Creator that's above, I would even say, some of the false idols of the Abrahamic religions. Okay, so above the Abrahamic religions, and looking at what is the true Creator beyond man's interpretation that he wrote in no book. Praying to the Great Spirit, as the Native Americans also refer to the Creator, for a place of rest. And I found myself drawn And I think it was really a change in the magnetic energy, being that I was just in Dallas and before that I was in Portland, both major U.S. cities with a lot of people under this mind control spell. And being someone that's written about mind control and written about psychic protection and talked about it in videos and felt even targeted myself, right? It makes sense for someone like me to seek to live off the grid and in a different terrain and even elevation than the sea level of Portland, Oregon, which is a very paranormal place. So was Dallas. I wanted to get away from that, even though the San Luis Valley is the mysterious valley. I didn't know it at the moment, but I just followed my heart and I put full trust in the Creator that I would survive the experience. And so what happened was, because I had that faith in the Creator, and I think this is important for people to hear, especially if you think you need, the woman, the wealth, and all these things before you go off grid. No, you don't need anything. And perhaps you need to lose everything before you learn about off-grid living. Now, yes, I think it's got to be a lot more challenging in the future. I was blessed to be able to find Costilla County just a year or two before they started cracking down and kicking people off their land. After marijuana was legalized, right? The whole do whatever you want, just live off the grid type of open society ended. It was like the end of the world, but not quite. I think Costilla County is a beautiful place, as well as the San Luis Valley. I've been contacted by hundreds of wannabe off-gridders that have still never made it out here. I'm hoping to see people put their money where their mouth is and not just be Facebookers, but actually one day do what it takes. I would love, right, to meet people of a higher consciousness that aren't into the left-right, that don't put me into a box as conspiracy theorist. And you know where the rest of this conversation goes. It really comes about and down to mutual respect. Community cannot exist if there is no mutual respect among the men and the women. Okay? For communities to be free of banks and police, self-abuse and abuse of others, right? These programs of the system, they've got to be hashed out. You can take the person out of Babylon. You can't necessarily take Babylon out of the person. And as I said before, some people go even more tribal once they get out in nature, where they may have been kinder in the city. Okay. The things that I may be telling you may be startling, but it's the truth. I also believe that nature can be really grounding if that's our intention, to have a spiritual experience, to be surrounded by the trees as I am. But someone could also go insane through the isolation. And if they have demonic issues or possession issues, those demons like to have their way with humans that they have control over. So sometimes they like to isolate humans from others so they can abuse them. And so it's important that people understand that off-grid living requires a sound mind. I really wish I did more writing in 2013 when I was living in Costilla County, but I'll try to make up for that now 4 years later. And now, like 5 years in my off-grid journey and my second year at the same location, which is healing because it's been a lot of travel for me the last few years. But it really comes down to the mental discipline to be alone. Now, a little bit of advice to men, right, that want a woman or want a woman to be living with them, unless you have running water, unless you have basic amenities of the grid, most women won't want to be around it. Now, I do understand that there are certain people out there that do a lot of drugs and crank and meth. And for people like that, they don't mind so much. It would be nice to see more, I guess, mainstream females, right, embrace something that's been natural to our ancestors for thousands of years. It's important that they do understand that by clinging onto the grid until they draw their last breath, they also leave themselves vulnerable to the types of things that can happen to victims of war, because I believe that something is coming to our country. You can learn more about this by going to the home channel, my YouTube channel, and watching Fourth Horse Rising. Okay, I don't want to get into World War III now, but I've been discussing this 10 years prior to even going off the grid. Something is coming. I feel it. And I feel something is coming to the West Coast. And a lot of women aren't going to be safe that are living in these modern cities. They're dividing the genders on purpose. There's going to be some collections. There's going to be some roundups. America's going into bankruptcy. Unfortunately, intelligence is plummeting like the towers of 9/11 within our country, that people can't go dollar collapse, divided genders. Wars without end. X marks the spot. We're being set up for a fall. And they're going to use China and Russia to do some pretty horrific things within this country. So I am a voice in the wilderness, literally. I am one of the only, if not the only, alternative media figures that is warning of actual physical events and covering current events that lives off the grid. Most off-gridders that you see on video are just talking about their little wife and their little battery bank and their little RV. And look what the chickens made today. A chicken. See, there's more to life than just you and yours. And this is the disease of the mind that many off-gridders need to wake up to. We are now in a situation where there are homeless off-gridders that have been kicked off their land because other off-gridders never came to their aid or never developed like a legal fund. So that's why I want you to know about websites like Off-Grid Co, OFFGRIDCO.com. If you want to help me develop a forum where we build an off-grid alliance from coast to coast around the nation, you find a way to find my email and you contact me. You want to be a volunteer rider, right? I want you to help me organize something. So if somebody gets kicked off their land or if someone is victimized, we can do something about it without, this is the next piece of advice for off-gridders, being infiltrated by the feds. You see, back in late 2015, Bruce Doucette, who claimed to be a judge, I believe he was an FBI informant, some sort of a provocateur, wanted to start a sovereign citizen militia in Costilla County. He screwed up our whole unity. He scared us. We don't want to come up on the radar, have the FBI looking at us. Well, now that guy is allegedly sitting in bars, behind bars, but he's another Pete Santilli type. And it was like a mini Burns, Oregon thing down there, or they tried to. The irony is Bruce Doucette went to Burns, Oregon, which I call the Bundy PsyOps, just after Costilla County. There's also another guy that was with him. Scary stuff. Because we went on the radar, we made the news, these off-gridders don't want to leave their land, we need legal help, blah, blah, blah. Somebody intervened. Then all of a sudden, the sovereign citizens arrived. You know what I mean? And it was a setup. They were totally all about having some sort of a conflict with the local officials there. That's not what off-gridders trying to stay on their land need. Is outsiders coming in trying to start a revolution so there can be a crackdown, so everybody could be punished. So there are a lot of off-gridders, a lot of tribalists, for example, that think that they're superior in some way, that are unable to see the PsyOps from their own government. I don't want to get more specific on this platform publicly on YouTube. I will be writing more about that on the on-demand side in the forum. Again, 19 cents a day, you can support my work. What are you waiting for? I would appreciate more people supporting my work because that is a sign that you do appreciate what it is that I do. And, you know, it's basically the cost of a cup of coffee or 2 cups of coffee to donate per month to support this channel. And in the wake of YouTube AdSense, where I'm making like, you know, just over $150 a month from just YouTube, that's a plummet of my income by 80%, just for those that don't know. They're hitting us hard on YouTube and Google so they can kill the independent media. So for those of you that do appreciate commentary, right, on Off-Grid Living, please support my work. Now, I do want to say, back to the advice to men with regards to women. Understand this. People may not be interested now, right, because you don't have the running water or you're living off the grid. Things change when the you-know-what hits the fan. But I would caution the average man of today's day and age who may not have been laid for many, many years from opening up your doors to one woman or several women that you don't know very well and aren't already close with for a sexual encounter when, say, the you-know-what is hitting the fan and all of a sudden they're emailing you, they're Facebooking you, all of a sudden they're interested now in living off the grid. You don't need extra mouths to feed if they aren't already your friend. If you're viewing her as a sexual object and she's viewing you as a safe place and trading the sex for safety, that is not a situation you want to walk into, where you have 2 people that aren't close friends living in the same quarters without proper sanitation. No, that is not going to fly. That is drama you do not need. So for men that are struggling with their sexual urges, you need to get that in check. I would definitely explore meditation. I would get some books, learn about the past, learn about how common it is for a man to go his own way for thousands of years, to step back from mainstream society. It is only now that incarnation like mine has the ability to grab a microphone and speak to the world, at least the Western world that's able to access YouTube, that is, instantaneously, where in the past it was just about scribes, scrolls, books. But see, the content that I'm creating now will be heard, read, appreciated by many people in the future, even if it's scoffed at by the humans in today's day and age. What have we not seen from today's off-gridders? You have never seen off-gridders yet attempt to be their own media. I was alluding to the divide between the liberty movement. A lot of the people that you hear discussing World War III and current events are in some of the most dangerous populated cities, acting like they're there providing information, but they're there sitting in the target zone. So either they are hyping up some things that they're saying, people like Christopher Green of AMTV, others, or they don't believe what they're saying. And if they do believe what they're saying, again, what's wrong with them? Why are they promoting paralysis mode? Sitting there freaking out on Facebook in one of the biggest cities on the earth. Don't promote stupidity. Let's not do that. Now, have I met off-gridders yet interested in documentary filmmaking, exposing the plans for World War III, that are able to keep Daddy Trump out of it and strong feelings for Daddy? No, I have not. As far as Hillary, I've never even met a Hillary supporter. I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton. I'm just saying I've never met a Hillary Clinton supporter. I know they're out there. I've just never met one. So there are definitely people that keep to the underground that are afraid. I'm sure they're out there, maybe a city like yours, blah, blah, blah. But this is Trump country where I'm at right now. So the politics of today's day and age has screwed up everything regarding community. Ultimately, I'm against those forces of evil that want to march literally on America and rape its future daughters. And that's what's being planned for America. Unfortunately, too many people are being pulled into the fake tribulation, biblical stuff, and being told that Donald Trump represents the good side. No, there is no good side. Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, China, they all work together. They're planning to take down this country and make whores out of the daughters of America and super soldiers in what ways they can out of the boys. And it's like Chris Rock saying we got to keep the boys off the pipe and our girls off the pole. There's a lot of Americans out there acting like they don't even care about their own children, but I do. And I don't even have children. And I care about their children in some cases more than they do. No, what's coming to the United States is very, very bad. They're going to be collecting human beings, right, after the economy crashes. So as far as I'm concerned, the data that I'm providing, the perspective that I'm providing is important to not only off-grid communities, but urban communities as well. Because there's going to be people fleeing at some point in the future. They're going to be wanting to go off-grid. They're going to be wanting to live in freedom. They're going to be wanting to live in safety. And a lot of them are going to be walking into situations where they're going to be getting on the freeway with their family and all their stuff packed in their car, and there's going to be like something like on fire, or some part of the bridge like blown up, and they are not going to be able to leave in some circumstances, certain urban areas, because there will be no road, right? So, again, a lot of us that are single men may have been in pain most of our lives, feeling ignored by the women of today's day and age. But the important thing is, when the you-know-what hits the fan, it will be less weight. We won't be dealing with a bunch of people that we have to worry about, especially if we have a pretty girlfriend or wife. We won't have to worry about a militia, 5 of them coming with guns to come and rape her. Now, that actually is going to be something that a lot of men are going to have to deal with. So again, as a man who has an interest in martial arts, it's amazing how many men out there with families can't even throw a punch. And these are men the women have chosen to be with. Again, men that can't throw a punch. Again, people need to think about how consciousness has imploded in America, in the Western world. Like the towers of 9/11. The internet can provide us good information, but ultimately, it's turned the minds of a lot of susceptible American viewers into Play-Doh. Okay. More concerned about people that don't look like them or members of their tribe than what the new world order is planning for them and their family. So we are close. The level of distrust that they manufactured, like years ago, I would talk to any man at all about who I am and what I stand for. It's only the last year that I kept my distance. And I look at, this community and whatever. These are people that bring the pitchforks. Okay, if they felt threatened or if they felt like they had to target someone, they will bring the pitchforks. Okay, so again, I see the situation that I'm in right now, as a situation where I'm resting, I'm writing, I'm honing my craft, and anything could happen at any moment. But I want to go back out in the world and make a difference. I'm even willing to go to New York City. I'm willing to go to Los Angeles. I'm willing to go to Seattle, Washington. I'm willing to go to Florida. I'd love to see that beach. I'd like to see the world and make a positive difference before these events that I believe are going to be coming by 2025. Before these events take place, I want to know that I did my best to make a difference. It's also possible it's in my stars that I should remain here. Again, people need to look at the difference between today and the Great Depression. During that period, people weren't on face crack all day long. Okay? You had people that were living in the country, that were living off the grid, 90% living in the country, 10% in the city. What do you have right now? You have 90% in the city, and one of the crap hitting the fan scenarios that we're looking at is the power grid going down. And that situation with people being in the city and not having farms, you have the threat of cannibalism, and as I've mentioned many, many times, human trafficking of women. That's what humans are still doing. You think human beings today alive that are involved in the militaries of today's day and age, whatever the nation is, you think they wouldn't be trafficking American women when they can look a blind eye to millions of humans, Afghans, Iraqis being removed off the planet? Really? See, so I think people in the Western world are in for a rude awakening when they realize what this world government, which is already in place, U.S., China, Russia, acting like they're different governments, they're really manufacturing events to create chaos on the planet. This is why people are really going to be wanting to go off the grid. They're going to want to stay alive. My last piece of advice, then we'll conclude this video. If you want to do that, you need to get right with God. If you're calling innocent people refugees, right? You think that's really good energy for the future American refugees that'll be running for their lives? This is something to contemplate. So I'm Alex answering for November 13th, 2017. Subscribe if you're new. Support if you can. I'll see you in the next video.